Hey, good evening. I'm Larry Reisman, columnist and community editor, and I'm joined by fellow editorial board members Adam Neal, Gil Smart, Louise Philippine. I think Lynette Marafa is on there, Adam Zaval-Gorba, and I'm here to welcome you to the TCPalm editorial board meeting where we're interviewing two candidates in the Sebastian recall election. Special thanks to our candidates, Sherry Matthews and Dave Newhart, for meeting with us today and streamlining this process by completing questionnaires ahead of time. Board members have reviewed them. Our editorial board has used this process for more than a decade, inviting in candidates so they and we can better inform the public, which we both serve. We did invite the other 6 candidates in to join us today. Unfortunately, some declined to attend, others did not respond to our invitation. A further explanation will be available on TCPalm soon. Questionnaires sent in by the numerous candidates that did do so can be found at tcpalm.com/elections, along with other stories, videos, and information about the September 15th election. At the conclusion of this interview, editorial board members will discuss possibly writing an editorial to recommend a candidate in this race. I will lead the questioning today and open it up to other editorial board members at the tail end of the interview. Adam will direct the video coverage, and if we get questions from our social media audience, Mike decides to pose one or two at the end of the session. We've got several questions for our candidates today, and we might end up having more of a conversation than just a simple Q&A. Our goal is to be completed in 45 minutes to an hour. Because of our time constraints, we ask the candidates that you keep your answers concise, just like when you were on the dais. You'll have to determine what that means and be respectful of others. So we'll start the questioning with Sherry. Can you please briefly explain your commitment to the Indian River Lagoon?
Well, I truly believe in making sure that we live the life style in Sebastian that we have always enjoyed. You know, my family lives here, works here, and we're rooted here. And I want to keep the waterways as vibrant and keep everything as clean and clear into where we can continue the healthy growth and move forward. You know, I have a grandson that's growing up in this area, and I want him to be able to be proud of Sebastian and be able to still enjoy the lagoons and the waterways and the waterfronts as he gets older as well.
Thanks, Sherry. Dave?
My commitment to the lagoon is one of the reasons why we decided when we moved here in 2007 to stay in Sebastian rather than going out into one of the peripheral communities. And the lagoon is so important to us and to our community. My wife and I kayak. My son-in-law comes and we fish together. But it is also just the resources that we have. And we know that there's been a lot of problems with it. I know that when I was at St. Elizabeth's, and one of our Eagle Scout projects was to put the new oyster bed into to the lagoon there, and did an excellent job at it. But it's a very complex situation in which we have to work with. It's a very complex situation that it's not just that we're going to be able to do it, but we need to have that collaborative, that consensus. We need to look at all the resources that are available so that we can maintain the waterways that they are, and that it will be here for generations to come. And so, I'm fully committed to that. And I just want to keep it where we're going, but also look to the future as to how we would handle that to, especially with increase in population and that it's going to get more use. So I have the commitment to say, let's keep it, let's preserve it, and let's clean it. That's my point.
Thanks, Dave. We'll start with you on this question. Can you name the top 3 transportation challenges in the city, in your opinion? And
you were breaking up, Larry. So if you could.
Sorry. Can you please name the top 3 transportation challenges in the city, in your opinion, and what would you like to see done about them?
transportation, the only one I really know of is the GO line. But I think there's other parts to that transportation, and how do we get people to different locations, you know, from that standpoint. I think what really we need to do is make our roads accessible. We need to make sure that there is a good transportation where the elderly or those that don't have cars can be able to, you know, get to their appointments and those kind of things. But again, you know, the GO line is there. I see people, you know, going on it. As for transportation, getting to and from the doctors and dentists and, you know, their medical care is extremely important, you know, for us in the community. I know that with our veteran community, we have a local run that will get our veterans to their appointments. All they have to do is call the Veterans Council, and we have a transportation department. So there's a lot of mobility issues with the elderly, and I know that Senior Resources has their bus that they take people with, but we need to be able to have that resource available to a broader spectrum in our community so that they can meet the needs that they do: grocery shopping, doctors, dentists, daycare, maybe even, you know, from that aspect. So that's what I got for you.
Thanks, Dave. Sherry?
Can you say the question one more time, Dave, or Larry? I'm sorry, because since you kind of broke up a little bit on the front part.
Sure. Please name the top 3 transportation challenges in the city, in your opinion, and what would you like to see done about them?
Well, I'm not. Sebastian has always had, and I said this before, that Sebastian has so far gone with a great plan. You know, we're a very small, beautiful city that has you know, we're a percentage higher, about 35% higher in population than Vero, and we're still such a small city. I think the biggest thing would be is just, we're going to have healthy growth, and I think that we're going to have growth, and to make sure that we have good plans, concurrency. I also think that there should be, you know, maybe when bring those in and bringing in new things, that road plans, and that needs to go well with it. I also believe that, you know, that we do need to provide. We do have a elder community, a lot of those, and we need to provide, and the GO line is an option. But I think the biggest thing is to really focus as we move through these the next years, is to focus on our healthy growth, make sure that we're doing the proper, make sure that everybody is involved, and the people that need to be involved, and all the resources, and make sure that we continue in the growth plans and the growth management that we've done for years, to allow our city to stay the hometown city that we are.
Thanks, Sherry. We'll start with you on this one. Becoming a new council member could be viewed as similar to taking on a new job or career. Can you please give us a specific example of a job change or career change in which you had to get up to speed quickly? Briefly, how did you do it?
Okay. Every job I held at the sheriff's office for 35 years was an up and quick job. Everything I took on, everything that was done, it was that move. The last 10 years of my career was spent in corrections, and it was to get the jail accredited. And we did an actual process it was a 3-year process that we spearheaded a team that we did it in less than 8 months, and came out 100% successful. My whole philosophy and the way I do is I educate myself, but I hit the ground running. I do not, under any circumstances, think that I have a monopoly on ideas, and I utilize resources. I listen to people. I hear people. I just continually educate myself, and I think that's one of my strongest attributes that I have. And as your next city councilwoman, I think it's going to be our best attribute, because it's one of the things that we've been lacking for a while.
Thanks, Sherry. Dave, did you hear the question okay?
Just go ahead and repeat it one more time, okay. But I think I did.
Okay. Becoming a new city council member could be viewed as similar to taking on a new job or career. Please give us a specific example of a job change or career change in which you had to get up to speed quickly. Briefly, how did you do it?
Well, let me put it this way. Somebody asked me about careers, and let's see, I've been to the Air Force, I've been a quality management, I switched companies. And then the biggest change was going to seminary and then becoming, a parish priest at St. Elizabeth's Episcopal Church. Every one of those, careers, so to speak, had different dynamics to it, in which, it's immediately where you have to adapt, improvise, overcome, look at the data, look at how you do this. And fortunately, during most of that time, I had great mentors in which I could go to, ask questions, say, hey, what about this? Or how would you handle this situation? And so as you go through that process, you learn, but you know who your resources are, that you can immediately go and ask questions if you have a question, from that standpoint. As Sherry alluded to, I'm not a lone ranger. I look to the resources, and as a city councilman, I would look to the staff, to the committees, and say, give me the dynamics of this. Let's take a look at this. In other words, let's kind of get down to the brass tacks of it. How do you handle this? What way is the best way to handle it? Or give me your opinion. And then we can have open dialogue conversations to make sure that we do meet the needs. So from my aspect is get in, get to know the people, get to know the operation, get to identify the key people who have the key resources so that you're not blindsided in a process or operation. Going through all these different career changes, being downsized after one, going into another one, into food safety, auditing, and going into different facilities. Every one of them had a learning curve to it. And I'm not, I never came in as an expert, never thought I was an expert. I always looked to the mentor or somebody I could go to get that information to provide me with the best answers or the best resource in which to address issues.
Thanks, Dave. We'll start with you on this one. Please give us an example of a time when you served in a collegial body, nonprofit board, company committee, something like that, and you disagreed with others on an important issue. How were you able to either get others to see your point of view or understand their idea was better?
I have two of those, but probably the most recent is I sit on the board of directors for the Veterans Council of Indian River County. And when we get together, and I'm just going to use this, and I know that there's, some of y'all are military out there. And so it is loaded with colonels, and then you've got a few enlisted people like me. And, and there is definitely a pecking order and dynamic. But again, I have to remind them that, guys, we and ladies that are on there, we are civilians at this point. That title that you have as colonel or whatever, we're all civilians looking for this. Recently, we had an issue that I won't say it was an issue. We were looking at the budget, and I disagreed with them on a certain portion as to how we would handle some of the contingencies. And through dialogue and through conversations, we came to a consensus and an agreement to this is probably the best way to handle it. And so in the end game, we came out with a great project. I mean, we're a great budget. So we know that if there's a shortfall, we're going to do this. If there's a depending on how much COVID affects us in our fundraising and those kind of things. But we had to agree. You had to agree on where we're going so that we could present a budget from the board of directors all the way down to the council, which, approves the budget or votes for the budget at that time. So those are some of the things that I look at. Working and going into the church, there's a lot of volunteers. You need to work with them because they're not paid. They can walk out. And that's the worst thing that could happen to you. So you work with people, and you try and listen to their side, listen to, the goes, and ask the questions. That's the key thing. Why do you feel this? And give me the reasons for it, not just because it's an emotive issue, but tell me the reasons why. And then we come to consensus on those kind of things.
Thanks, Dave. Sherry, do you have an example you'd like to talk about?
Well, I have many examples that I'd like to talk about. I've actually worked with over 400 nonprofit organizations. I created a female vocation program, and during that creating period and the implementation period and other things that were going on, I actually had to. I had the highest law enforcement officer in the county and the state of Florida sitting on one end of the table and inmates at the other end of the table, and had to come to agreements and work together with that, and spearheading a lot of the different things. Again, I'm going to say that, I love ideas. I question people all day long. I want to educate myself about the different ideas and away we go. When I was spearheading the accreditation part of the jail at my last part of the career, last year's, we had to come up with a lot of things. There was a lot of movement, a lot of policies. We had to investigate a lot of laws, and we all know, and I can be just as guilty at times, that sometimes adults do not like change. And so telling somebody that we have to change the way you've been doing something for 20 years can sometimes be a little difficult. And so I take pride in the fact that I can sit at a table with anybody, and we can work, we can come up with resolutions. We deal with the facts, we deal with what we have to do. Everybody's words, everybody that says something, they're just as valuable as the person sitting next to you. I don't care what your level, I don't care your rank, I don't care what your, that's not what's important. What is important is to match the resolution with the issue, to come up with a resolution that is going to work and stay within the guidelines that we have and the factors that we have to deal with, whether it's laws, ordinances, that type of thing. And then we come up with a solution, and all together we come up with a solution. It's something that I've done for 35 years. So.
Thanks, Sherry.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start with you on this question. Many people move to and love Sebastian because of its small town feel. In light of proposed development and annexations, please explain how the city should keep that small town feeling, or is that impossible?
Well, I don't think it's impossible, because I think the city of Sebastian has proved over the years that we can maintain that small hometown feeling, that vibrant city that everybody loves to be in, because it is that hometown, that feeling. I believe in healthy growth, but I'm not opposed to annexation. I'm not opposed to new community. We're going to have growth whether we embrace it or not. So my feeling on that is to embrace the growth, accept the growth, and have a good, healthy plan to go with it. But some of the things that we need to do in order to have that healthy growth and to be able to move forward is that we need to be able to sit at the table. We need to be able to work with the county commissioners, legislators, all of these folks that are going to help, all these different resources that we have available that are going to help us bring and help resources flow back into Sebastian. What I am opposed to in any type of growth is that where we don't do it properly, and we don't have all the plans, and we don't have the developments, and we don't do what we're supposed to do and utilize all the resources that are available to us, and then the city of Sebastian ends up funding something instead of reaping the benefits from it. In any type of healthy growth, Sebastian should be on the benefit receiving side and not having to fund it.
Thanks, Sherry. Dave?
Well, it's all about growth. How do we keep the small town feel the same as it was? I want to go back to 86. I was working for Quaker Oats at the time. They transferred me to Kissimmee, Florida, and I ended up in a community called Hunters Creek. And Hunters Creek was right on Orange Blossom Trail. It had, basically 4 lanes, and John Young Parkway actually ended right by our community. And there was really nothing on the other side of John Young Parkway. As I lived there for 15 years, and I watched the growth, and I watched the buildings, and I watched the building, you could be born there, you could die there, and you have everything there except maybe a movie theater. And the key to this is that, and what I'm trying to strive for in this is that we lost that small town community. We lost that way that we could go to another neighborhood or another development. And so each one was parceled out for different housing, different, you know, whether it was zero lot line, whether it was, you know, apartments or whatever. But we lost that hometown community and that feel because of one, the growth that was so exponential. And now John Young is 6 lanes and LBT is 6 lanes and, you know, that kind of stuff. I hesitate. The key to this is that, yes, we're going to grow. In fact, our community is growing right now. I mean, we got DR Express homes coming in. There's been 4 of them that have been put in my area, or actually 6 of them that have been put in my area. So we're already experiencing some of that limited growth, you know, in our area. So when you look at annexation, it really is a composite of another kind of small community that we have to take into account. And how do we resource that? If we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And then Sebastian is still going to pay the price for the boat ramps and the parks and all of that, and the community and the restaurants. So we need to look at that kind of growth. We need to work with the county. We need to work with the state. We need to work with St. John's Water Management. There's a whole variety of things that will be incorporated or need to be incorporated appropriately so that we can develop it, still maintain that small town community without trying to push everything all into one spot. And, you know, it'd be a disaster, really. So you do have to look at, you know, you have to look at 510 and see what kind of structure it's going to be. You have to look at 66 Avenue, see what kind of, you know, changes are going to need to be made. It's not a one-stop shop. It's going to be a way that you have to do this, not in 1 year, not in 5 years, but you're going to have at least a minimum of a 5-year plan to a 10-year plan. And, you know, from that aspect. So annexation is good. Small town community, you're going to get it. We will lose some of it just because of the population density, but there's a way that you can control it so that you don't lose the ultimate feel of Sebastian being a small town community.
Thanks, Dave. We'll give you this next question. We'll let you start with this one. Please give an example of an ethical dilemma you might have faced at some point in your life. How did you decide how to handle that?
Wow. Yeah, there was a situation in which a mother had abandoned her child. It was actually somebody I knew very close, and had abandoned their actually, she was a minor at the time that she was abandoned. And this child called me and said, "Hey, I need help. I can't live like this. I can't do this." And so to me, it was a sound of a cry where somebody was looking at committing suicide or doing something irrational to their health. And so I got them to call the sheriff's department where they were living and have the sheriff come in and take care of things. What that caused was, this person was a very, very, very dear, close friend. What it caused was a rift between us. And no matter what I did to try and talk to this parent, it was, no, that child is out. That's it. And so from an ethical standpoint, I had to, and especially as a priest too, I had to go to the sheriff. I had to get that child to get help. And then the Child Protection Services, both from that state and the state in which he originated from, were involved. And I had to defend that and defend that action to protect that child. So there's a lot of borderline that you're associated with somebody that's really close to you, and you see the situation, but you know you have to do what's best. You have to do what's right and not be afraid to do that, no matter what the cost. I can't, you know, there's a lot of ethical issues that are going on right now. I have to maintain that integrity. I have to maintain that honesty, and I have to maintain that ethics, because I'll put it simply this way. When my children were being raised, and I said, there is only, I said, there's a lot of things that can happen to you, but there is one thing that only you can give away. There's only one thing you can give away, and that's your integrity. And so I hold on to that. That you can get hurt, you can get mugged, you can get, assaulted, but the only thing that you hold on to through it all is your integrity. And that's the moral issue. And that's where ethics come in, is maintaining that integrity.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Sherry, can you give an example of an ethical dilemma you might have faced at some point and how you handled it?
That I can speak about on open. Okay. This is a tough question because there's always some type of ethical issue in law enforcement, and being in communications or 911. There's always some type of, it didn't involve me, but with a high integrity, and we work off of ethics. That's our main goal. That's what we have, is our high integrity, our ethics, our morals. And so we were always, I held myself at a higher standard. I held my children at a higher standard. I held the people that I supervised, at a high standard. I expect you to do what you're supposed to do. And so with that, this is tough for me because I never put myself in a situation where there was an ethical, I don't have it. I've never been in that situation because it's always been a solution or somebody else has stepped in. So I've really never had to, because do we handle it? Yes. But it was every day we were handling some other person's ethical issues or their lack thereof.
Okay.
So we could do any number of calls for service over the last 35 years, or the events that have happened. It's an everyday, every call type situation. So for me to say one particular, that would be very hard for me.
Okay. So how about we talk about the next question, which will be, if elected, one of your first tasks will be to approve a budget. What suggestions, if any, will you make? Should certain things be cut? Should the city find money for employee raises? What are some of the questions you might ask or do? Things you might do.
Well, I'm not a proponent of cutting services. I think that we need to look in different ways, different methods, and different things, coming up with different ways that we can look at the budget and see, okay, what can we do? And we may have to cut back a little bit, but on expenditures and areas of that. But I'm not for, and won't be for, of ever cutting back services, because I think once you establish a service, that becomes your main level, and you're always trying to rise from that level from there. So once that becomes your deciding factor, we don't go backwards. So I believe that there's other ways that we can do things, and I'd have to sit down and look at it. I've briefly over the years kind of briefly looked at their budget. I have many years of budget experience working with the sheriff's office and being in those roles. I was a factor of some of the budgeting. We all had our part that we had to play into a $43 million budget. And looking at these budgets and just looking at the budget that was displayed at the last council meeting, I did see things that I had questions. I saw areas where I had questions that I would ask, and I would want to know why can't. There's things that I think that we can do, and I think there's things that we can improve. And those are things that once I'm hopefully elected, humbly elected by the city of Sebastian, the voters in Sebastian, that I would prominently take a look at for the next coming budget year.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. Dave?
Budgets. Everybody talks about budgets, and nobody likes to talk about budgets. So this is very pointed question in this. Over the years, I've had to have budgets for the church. I've had to have budgets for what I've done and my job as a quality manager. What are you going to do? And there's been many years, through, I'm not a spring chicken. So, there's many years in which there's been a shortfall when I was working with the government, and, the fiscal year comes up in October. So you're looking at, where do we, what do we have to do to, cut down on budgets? I agree with Sherry. We should never, ever, ever drop services, because that's what maintains the city, whether it's the police, whether it's roads, whether it's, but there are certain things like overtime. There's things like travel. There's other there's other peripheral things that you do that you can definitely cut down or slow down. I've never had to cut wages. That's one thing I've never had to do. But I've experienced where there's been a wage freeze, at least for that time. The other thing about the budget too, that one needs to look at is, how do you create, and we need to look at things like grants and things like that. Where can we get grants? Where can we do that? And if those grants don't come through and you're relying on a grant, and that's what happens with, the Veterans Council, we look at grants. We're looking at grants for, how do we maintain the services that we have for our veterans in this community? And, we're an organization that's about $400,000 organization. And there's 365 nonprofits in, Indian River County, basically all buying for your money. So what I'm really pointing to is that you have to really look at what's peripheral. Can you cut down on this area? But never services, never cut people that are, their expenses or whatever. You just cut down on travel. You cut down on areas that are peripheral to your business. And you may have to do wage freezes for a year or something. But you also have to, in that budget, look at, this is what our natural budget is. This is our contingent plan, especially with COVID and not getting gas taxes, and we're not getting tourism taxes, and we're not getting a lot of that stuff that we would normally get. And then also look at, and that would be a mid plan. And then what if COVID just really shut everything down? And so we have to really look at that aspect too, because you have businesses that are putting money in, but if they're not making money, then the taxes go down and what they're contributing. It's a snowball effect. So you really have to look at everything. And then how are you going to compensate for that in different areas? Can you hold off on some of the purchases for another year? Can you say, I'm going to wait and purchase, these 2 new vehicles that are going to cost me $75,000 or whatever, next year? And so you look at the small things that add up to big things.
Thanks, Dave. We'll start with you on this next question. Over the years, Sebastian has spent lots of money on stormwater fixes. While things have improved for some people, drainage has been a problem. How would you ensure residents' stormwater fees are used as efficiently as possible?
Well, that question cannot be answered in one single word or one single sentence. That is an issue that's been and has been an issue for years and years and years. And some people blame it on General Development Corps, which came in and put drainage ditches in the wrong way, or they put quarter rounds in, and then new construction comes in and they have different slopes to, their housing. Zoning has changed so much. The issue that I see is, where do we start with, the stormwater? Where do we come in, first of all, in our local housing areas, because that has to drain and be draining. If you've got a lot of vegetation in your drain system, then it's going to slow everything down. You're going to get flooding. It's not going to work. If your whole canal system is overgrown, you're going to have issues with water being, going through there. You're going to have environmental issues. You're going to have people with rats and snakes and all that, growing in their area where they didn't. There's a number of ways to look at it, but you have to look at, how do we redesign some of the berms and the swales in the city that now they need to match. And if it's like wearing two different color socks. Somebody knows you're going to have 2 different color socks on. We need to put a single pair of socks in a certain area to protect our roadways. We need to, address those, address where the drainage is, and also address those that are maintaining the canals and the drainage canals, especially behind communities or behind houses and things like that, so that you get a good flow of water. Water always goes to the point of least resistance, but if it's blocked, it's going to divert. So it's not an easy issue to answer. There are solutions that can be looked at, and I don't have all those solutions. I don't know the intricacies of our canal system. It'd be one area that I'd really take a look at so that I can say, I can ask those questions: how, when, where, why, and what should we do, you know, and then get the information from a variety of different resources so that we can address those issues appropriately and, you know, not raise the cost of everything and say, well, let's do Band-Aid fixes here and Band-Aid. You want to do it right the first time. And so, you know, it's going to be an issue for many years. It's a matter of digging in, finding out the best issues and how to handle it without causing additional problems.
Thanks, Dave. Sherry?
Well, drainage has plagued our city for many, many years, and city of Sebastian as well as Florida. It's my understanding that Ken Griffin, who is a expert and has a lot of experience and knowledge in lake management, is actually supposed to be forming a committee on the complexity and the issues that's going on with our stormwater system throughout the city and the 8 miles of canals that we have. If Mr. Griffin can bring in the citizen involvement and the process of that citizen management, bring that in, and through transparency to the city's management, I truly, about the stormwaters and the complexities, get that process in and work with that with his knowledge. I honestly think that we're going to, the rewards will be substantial for the city of Sebastian with the drainage. And I truly believe that they're on the right track using Mr. Griffin with his expert and experience.
Thanks. Sherry, I'll let you start with this one. What specifically do you think the role of City Council is with regard to overseeing its charter officers, the city manager, clerk, and the city attorney? Is it different than your management role, say, in your workplace?
Well, I don't know that it's different. I just know that how I handle in a management situation, I lead by example. I am a supervisor that has always led by example, and I would never ask anything of anyone that I wouldn't do myself. I truly believe in that. I truly believe that you have to be the role model for what you're wanting. The charter officers, they are there to supervise an entire group of city employees, and the way I would handle them is to work side by side, learn their job, learn what they have. In my management skills and what I do and my strong leadership skills, I work with you, even though it may be, a supervisor position, I still work with you again. And that's the way I work. I'm very much I do expect you to do your job. I expect, but I also know that you expect me to do your job. And I also believe in evaluations that, evaluation, not only, when we do an annual evaluation as a city council on those charter officers, they can evaluate me as well. What do you want me to, what do you see me need to do as a supervisor and as the growth, or what do we need to do in that area? So it runs both ways. And that's the way I do business with any of them.
Thanks, Sherry. Dave?
Charter officers are there to oversee the different areas that they have. The city clerk has her responsibilities. The city manager has the responsibilities. Every one of the charter officers has subgroups underneath them, and the city council really is overseeing what they're doing and working with them. I'm not a micromanager, but I like information. So I should be able to go to one of the charter, officers and say, this is the kind of information I need. Everyone has to be accountable. They can't be slackers, but I've never seen one of our, city charter officers being slackers. I think they really do a good job. It's working with them in unison, building relationships. That's the key to everything. Is how do you build a relationship with somebody so that there is mutual trust and respect in that situation? If you can't build that, if you are an adversary, if you are an agitator and you're agitating your staff, they're not going to really work well. And that's never been the way that I work. I like to ask questions, like I said, but we work relationally. And again, we're not always going to agree, but I'm going to look at that and say, how can you best supply me with the information? Because in the end, the city council votes on it. And so if I've got disinformation coming forward and they don't have trust in who I am, then I can't provide the right resolutions, or make the right vote for the benefit of the city. So as for the charter members, everyone should, as Sherry said, everyone's got an evaluation. I ask people to give me, criticism. I like good constructive criticism, and, because then that's going to improve my position and not get this negative criticism all the time, which doesn't help build relationships. When I was in the corporate world, we followed the DuPont system. It says start, stop, and continue. And this is what I'd like to see you stop doing, and this is what I'd like to see you start doing. And this is what I think you're really doing good. And I want to see you continue doing it. And that's been an approach that I've always looked at. And then also looking at it from a continuous process improvement. How can I improve my position? How can you improve your position? But again, it boils down to trust and relationships with the people that you work with side by side, and be able to, if there's a conflict, be able to go to them and say, hey, I'm concerned about this. Tell me, and be open enough to receive what they have. And that's what I look as charter members, the officers. They have the responsibilities, but we have to be able to trust them and use them for our resources on the council to make the right votes and the right decisions.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, we're at the point now where I'd like to open it up to any other editorial board member that has a question. Louise, Adam, two Adams, Gil, Lynette, any other questions? Nothing from Gil? Louise? No. Okay, I've got one more question, and then we'll give you an opportunity to wrap up. I think we'll start with we'll start with Dave on this. If elected, you have to serve people you like and others you might not like. Please give us an example of a time when, for the good of all, for the good of everyone, you worked effectively with someone you didn't initially like.
Oh, you've never pastored a parish, have you?
No.
Yeah.
You don't have to name names. No names.
There are no names, and you're going to find people that you're going to have to work with that come off as arrogant, as narcissistic. You're going to have to work with people who think they know everything. And so again, it goes down to not taking offense to who they are and what they're saying to you. It's a matter of listening to why and being able to counter that question as to why do you feel this way? What is driving this situation? Why are you, why do you have this feeling? And so at that point, it disarms rather than arms them. And so the greatest, defense is a good offense, as they say. But that offense has to be willing to say, you know what? I really don't like you. I don't like what you're doing. I don't like how you're doing it. But explain to me why. What is the cause and the effect? And that goes back to, continuous process improvements. You take a look and you circle around and back and you figure it out. And maybe it's something I'm doing versus what they are. And so they have this feeling against, have this adamant feeling that I don't like you and you're a bad boss or whatever. You're going to come across that. But there's times in which you can do that. I remember, and I love her to death today, but Andrea Coy and I used to have issues. And occasionally we would go head to head. But we built a relationship over this years that, we joke and she goes, is everything all right with you and with us? And I'm like, yep, it sure is. Because I talked to her, she talked to me, we rationalized and said, here's what my point is, and here's what your point is. and you can come to that. And so, yeah, there's people you're going to not agree with, you're not going to like, but they're part of the process and they're part of, you know, the community. And to discount them and to shove them out the door, you know, you're not going to benefit anybody. And then that's just going to ramp up and carry on out, because they're going to say, well, they didn't help me, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. But you have to really work with that situation. And so, you know, whether it's in a church, whether it's in the community, whether it's in a business, whether it's, you know, whatever you're doing, it's about relationships, respecting them and listening to their point so that you can at least address it. And maybe you won't. Maybe you won't. Maybe it's going to go away that they're not pleased at all. And that's, you know, you're going to have to deal with that. And you have to have thick skin.
All right, Dave, I appreciate that answer. Sherry?
Can you just repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, sure. If elected, you will have to serve people you like and others you don't, or you might not. Please give us an example of a time when, for the good of everyone, you worked effectively with someone you did not like or didn't initially like.
Well, I can honestly say that one of my best mentors that I ever had in my 35-year career with the sheriff's office was someone that we butted heads constantly. And they became one of the biggest mentors in my career. Being in 911, being in civil training, jail, again, all of the factors that I did in my career, there's always somebody that's going to, you're going to butt heads with, because they have a difference of opinion. I served, you know, when you serve all of the law enforcement and you have to be fair to everyone. And that's my nature. I'm fair. I don't look at personalities. I don't look at people that we don't get along, because that's just life. Life is that there's going to be people that cross your path that you just don't get along with or don't like, but you have to make it work. And I have sat at the table for many years with people that are, if you can imagine, probably more hard-headed than me or more stronger, you know, than me with us, and we've had to come to an agreement. It's not about a personality. You know, it's not a social club. It's just working. I'm a legislator. If I'm elected, I'll be your legislator, and I work with everyone. I mean, everyone has a voice. I'm not concerned about personalities, because we have a job to do. We, not only as the city council, but we as the residents of Sebastian and the small businesses of Sebastian, we have a job to do, and that's to get Sebastian back on track, get them back where we are moving forward, get them back into the community that we know and love, and just make decisions, make sound decisions.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. Louise, I don't know if you had a question. I know you're muted, so you'd have to unmute yourself if you do have a question. Just checking. No question? Okay, no question. All right, thanks. Oh, you're unmuted. So do you have a question? Can't hear you.
I'm trying to get a question, but if you can hear the dance in the background.
Okay. You want to try again, Louise?
Is there any certain solution or problem?
Yeah, we're not able to get
Eager to start?
Yeah, we've got a technical problem there, Louise, so I'm sorry about that, but it's not coming through correctly. So we're going to go to our closing statements, and maybe offline Louise can email you guys and maybe get some comments. But we'll go to Sherry first. We'll give you an opportunity to sort of wrap up if there's something you'd like to tell us and the public that we missed. We'd be happy to have you talk about it.
Well, I just want to thank you, Larry, for putting this together, and Dave. It's always, you know, we've done this twice now, so you are a preacher. I want to thank everyone, and I am humbled to be running for this position. My job, my leadership skills, speak highly. They're strong. I have high integrity, common sense. My family is rooted in Sebastian. We work here, we live here. We're raising a grandson, and I hope that he's proud to call this his home one day, even as he's older. I'm not just a quick study, and I don't have to try to understand things, because I do. I can work on the day one. I'm a strong advocate for transparency and for open meeting laws and anti-cronyism. I have no agendas, neither personal or political. I will not be manipulated, or my allegiance is never for self. I will work with all the parties, and reaching a common resolution or a common decision is, regardless of the issue, is unparalleled. I believe that I am the best candidate. I'm an obvious choice for your next city council, and I would be humbled if you would vote for me on September 15th, Sherry Matthews.
Thanks, Sherry. Dave, is there anything else you'd like to let us and the public know that we missed? Anything?
Yeah, the one thing I want you to know is that I vacillated tremendously whether to run for office or not. I retired 1 May, right in the middle of a COVID transition, and couldn't pull my retirement papers out so I could stay at least another year and serve, the church where I was at. But what happened was I looked at what was going on, and I've done I know a lot of people who have served on the city council. I'm very active with the veterans. I've done every one of the veteran services that it's down at, that we do at Riverview Park. We've participated in parades from the church. We love this community, and that's one of the things that I've been watching, especially since last November, is how this community has become what was, yes, there's differences, but it's become so divided, and so there's so much antagonism that nothing is getting done. And then some of the things that happen at city council meeting, where it's like, I want the public to know. Well, the public can know, but you don't have to do it like throwing it in the face and throwing somebody under the bus. I'm not that kind of person. I didn't come here scripted. I don't have anybody coaching me. I'm doing all of this on my own finance because I don't want to be beholden to anybody. I want to serve the community to the best way that's possible. And yes, I think I'm a good candidate, but you're the one who's going to make the decision whether I'm the best candidate or one of the best candidates, because potentially we have 3 slots open, or we may have 2, but we'll probably definitely have 1. And, but the point is you want the best person in there. I'm not, out politicizing. I've got a few signs out there. That's about it. I'm just here to be who I am, to share with you who I am. And what you see is what you get, as they say. But I have the honesty, the integrity, the passion for this community. I have the passion to serve this community. And I'm looking to say, listen, I'm not a bought person. I will never be a bought person. I will ask the right questions. I will ask everybody says the devil is in the details. I want to know where the devil is at so I can cast him out. I guess that's my preacher in me. But, that's really what I want to do, is say, look, and then if the decision comes back and some of the citizens say, why did you make that? We have a great explanation to why. And not just, well, we thought it was a good idea. Good ideas are there. I've had more good ideas shoved on my plate and on my desk. And then when it comes time to owning them, they go away. So, me, I'm going to be me. You ask me a question, I'm going to tell you. And, I'm very transparent in who I am, what I am. I'm an Episcopal, retired now, Episcopal priest. I have tattoos. I have a pierced ear, and I make great beer. So on top of that, but I can serve this community because I build these relationships with the veterans. I build relationships with the community, with the government, with the people who serve. I have a very wide, diverse outreach, and I want to maintain that and build it. So am I the best candidate? That's for you to decide. But what you see is what you get. None of this is rehearsed. It's just me pouring my heart out to you as to who I am. And Larry, you and I have had a number of conversations about what's going on up here and the feelings of some people up here and the feelings towards TCPalm. You know me, I'm going to work and I'm going to be with you and I'm going to talk to you, because the best thing is find a resolution where people can work together and be together.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And I want to thank both you and Sherry for joining us tonight, and, and joining the TCPalm editorial board, all of us that are here. I think you helped to certainly educate us and educate the community that's able to watch this on Facebook, YouTube, and on TCPalm. And again, make sure you get out and vote September 15th. We'll have some commentary on this meeting and on the election on TCPalm and in the Press Journal in the not too distant future. So thank you again for joining us, guys.
Well, thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We really do appreciate it.